Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh Ji. We're in the car, we're driving out of town, and we wanted to make this video in response to a question that we got the other day. And the question was, what would you like to see from Sikh organizations to help combat racism, whether that's inside or outside of the Punjabi Sikh community? So we had a couple ideas that we were bouncing around right now. So we're going to talk a little bit openly about that. The first thing that we were saying is that for any Sikh organizations that are having this discussion about like how can we be more accommodating, or how can we help to fight racism, or how can we be more inclusive, I think it's important to have Black people as a part of that discussion, instead of all the Punjabis, invite all the Punjabis to talk about Black people. And like so far, like in what we've seen, like it's just, it's happening a little bit, but you know, not too much, you know, in terms of actually Black people being invited to the conversation. So I think that that's a big one. And then you know, like on one hand, I feel like not do they just need to be invited to the conversation, but like they need to be taking part in like maybe even leading the discussion at certain times. Maybe not so much in terms of what was your experience like at the Gurdwara, but because I know not everybody faces racism. I faced a lot of racism. I know a lot of people who faced a lot of racism well before they came into Sikhi. But just like what's like, get their opinion first of what can we do, right? Or what's your take on this? That's kind of a nuanced discussion, but I think it's like in terms of making that happen. But I think it's a good starting point. What's another thing that we were talking about in terms of what they can do?
Well, I think if there's... Sorry.
Take exit 194A on the right to Highway 23 East.
There we go.
I'm gonna miss my exit. Okay. A lot of the organizations, and I could be wrong, our experience has been that a lot of Sikh organizations have a younger demographic as far as leadership, and I think from experience being involved in them that usually I feel like we don't have a voice to speak up to institutions like Gurdwara, and also that our generation feels very disenchanted and unimpressed with Gurdwara politics and committees. We could have a petition with 100,000 signatures demanding change, and I'm talking from my experience, whatever, don't feel like it's going to matter. Nothing's going to change. And that's really too bad. Sorry. Hold on.
And like, what are some of the reasons for that, of like, not just like being not disenfranchised, but like disillusioned with...
Because we're so young, right? Like, we're in university, or, you know, just in our late 20s, whatever the case is, and you feel like I don't really have a voice because they're not going to listen to... And then there's so many other parts at play here. You know, if I'm a young, you know, fresh out of university, just starting my career, plus I'm a woman, plus I'm this and that, you know, what do I possibly have to contribute to this discussion, or how can I go demand change? But even when you get to my age, just a little bit more than 25, but when you get older, you're married, you have kids, you're busy with 1,000 different things. Maybe you don't go to the Gurdwara as often, so you feel like, you know, who am I to even show up and rock the boat and demand change?
Yeah, and sometimes like Gurdwara themselves are like really stubborn, you know, kind of stuck in their ways, and they're not going to accommodate you no matter how many times you ask, you know.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people get that sense of like, why bother? And I think that's a good point of like, for a solution, like
that
there's...
way. Look how beautiful this is.
I don't know if it'll turn up. Yeah, it's pretty. The rain is following us.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I was saying that in terms of solutions for something like that, of like what organizations can do, not necessarily Gurdwara, but just like different Sikh organizations, grassroots or whatever. That's one thing that they can do, is maybe talk to the Gurdwara about, here's what we can do, or like we'd like to offer this, right? Like have this discussion or have this speaker come and or like even like if they're like facilitating like an open house at the Gurdwara, like just let us run it. If you guys don't want to do it, let us run it. We'll do the open house and we'll invite everybody. We'll have the Sikhi to the max. Like we can have sevadars, right, to help you with all of this.
Well, that was. It sounds easy to say we'll have sevadars, but when you're an established professional in your field, generally, like we've only seen a few doctors and lawyers really bring their field of expertise and their background in academia and everything into the community as seva. So if we have social workers or whatever, whatever profession that can speak to this, like HR professionals, like what has been your experience in, pushing the hand of a company or a corporation to have sensitivity or diversity training, or to, change and create policies to, combat discrimination and racism in various forms in corporations. If you've done that as your career, please come to the conversation of how we can have this happen in our institutions. And that's not just, I'm saying Gurdwara a lot, but like our Sikh schools, our, our Bhangra schools, our Gatka academies, like all of these things that have these, our community in them. It's not just Sikh, right? So
I think that kind of bypasses this problem. I think a lot of young people are like really idealistic and have really high hopes, and then they kind of fall victim to their own lack of credibility when it comes to speaking to older generations. Like you're this 20-something or maybe younger, and then you go to the Gurdwara of like, you guys are doing it all wrong, or you're not connecting to such and such audience, and then they're like, get out of my face, you have no life experience, you live at home with your parents, what do you know about running a Gurdwara or a business? Right?
Very specific.
Right? No, but seriously, right? They're like looking at you of like, who are you to say that I'm doing anything wrong, right? And like, if you have actual professionals who've been in the industry for years, this is a profession, like even just as a speaker, addressing a group, like that's a very big difference between, some university student going to a Gurdwara and saying, I want to talk to people about this, or I want to host this sort of, this talk about whatever, versus an actual professional saying, hey, I want to host this talk.
Okay, hold on. I want to go back to, like, if you had a speaker that was, say you had, some saying come forward and say, I would like some stage time, even if they're granted that, got some stage time, they want to talk about this issue, then they talk about it, then there's the so what. This is a speaker who is not part of that community, maybe, right? Or maybe they come across the country or from across the world. We've seen it happen. Someone comes in and says, you need to change what how you talk about A, B, and C. They do the finger shaking, and then the community says Hanji, Hanji, Vaigru, Vaigru, and they leave, and there's no follow through with it. There's no change. Nothing actually happens. But also, the community is the one that's going to know, well, he or she doesn't really know what they're talking about, because this is a community that's been affected by whatever. So case in point would be like in my family, when we're still being told you don't understand, it's because so-and-so's shop got burned down by whatever. So there's a lot of that, like we're playing the victim, right? Like we're holding on to why we think we have a right to be scared or mad or angry or anything like that, instead of wanting to grow out of it.
Yeah, so I think to that point, what a lot of organizations within Sangat, what they can do is sort of bridge the gap. Maybe, is that what you're saying? Like in terms of, like, how do we fix this problem? Like, you can have organizations come and bridge the gap and say, I know this community because I live in this community, or this is my Gurdwara, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then they can say, okay, I want to create this space, whether that's inside the Gurdwara or outside the Gurdwara. And I think that's an important point to bring up. I'm going to circle back to that in a second.
Yeah.
But like, they could bridge the gap and sort of like do more of the boots on the ground type stuff with the community.
Right.
That maybe doesn't necessarily happen in the Gurdwara, right? Like if we know like a community, like maybe there's like maybe they need more inclusive events, like to the broader public, or maybe more interfaith events, or, you know, like how to, like giving a talk on like how do you have that difficult conversation with your parents about, you know, racism and how we've been affected, but still like being super respectful, or you know, like how do you take what we are talking about in these small circles back home or back to your community and actually start implementing change. Like if there's a company that's already doing that training,
That's what I mean. It's like,
go to
Yeah.
Sangat and actually offer that training
Yeah.
to them. Yeah. But like
because you don't need to reinvent the wheel. This has been, I mean, Black Lives Matter has some more momentum and everything now because of recent events, but you know, the LGBTQ community, even women having these sexual harassment cases. There's a deer.
we got deer on the road.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, pretty.
There's, you know, like we have so many people that have, you know, like forged the path in front of us. They've already pioneered for change at various levels. We don't need to reinvent the wheel with that. We just need to. I don't think we've had even that basic conversation.
Yeah.
In our communities, largely, when we talk about sexual harassment or a myriad of other issues. We are so behind on equality in so many different groups that this is just another one, but it's high time that we had it.
Yeah. But one thing that I was going to say is that, you know, for different reasons, a lot of this conversation is just not going to happen in the Gurdwara.
Yeah.
And so, like, maybe finding a community space to talk about this stuff and inviting Sangat to
Why
a
don't we
place
just do
that
it?
is more...
This is like our third video where we're saying people should do it. If you guys are watching this and you're thinking you want to talk to Big Sing about this, or you want to have a discussion about how this affects whatever organization you're a part of, message him.
yeah, you can reach out.
Because we can't just keep saying, I wish someone would do it.
Yeah.
I wish someone would invite a black person to the conversation. You're right here.
Yeah, well, and like, you know, I am like one of a small number, I feel like, of high visibility, you know, figures within the community. That's like the unicorn that kind of stands out, and I openly go out and share my story and my experiences, and I like make a point to go and talk to youth or speak on panels as often as I can, right? I don't know too many other people that really do that, you know, so it's like, I don't know, I feel like it's you know, I'm getting older, and like the older you get, like everything you come to learn in your life is less and less about you and more about what you can pass on to the next generation, right?
I think it changed a lot when we had Karen too. It was fine when, well, not fine, but it was one thing for us to have experienced this, but now it's, you know, the stakes are higher, like you
Yeah,
said.
stakes are higher. Yeah. So, but it doesn't take that, right? Because it's like we went through that, and we didn't really wake up to this idea of, wow, we really got to try to fight to make this world better for everybody else, until we had a daughter, and we're just like, what kind of world is she going to grow up in? Right? How am I going to feel, you know, 10 years, 20 years from now, when she's facing all these exact same problems and I did nothing about it, right? So like it really put us in our face, but it doesn't have to come to that, right? Like if you're much younger, or if you're more detached from a lot of these issues, you know, just because it's like maybe you don't have kids, or maybe you're not as active in the community as some other people are. It's like, it doesn't mean that, you know, you have less to contribute, or you're not invited to that discussion. You know, like, we should all do whatever we can to try to improve each other's situation. So we're all in this together in the end. Do we have any other things? No?
It's a hard question to answer.
It's a tough question, yeah.
What can we do? Because I think any marginalized or disenfranchised group has been asking that question. You know, like, how do we change this? What do we do?
Yeah.
For forever, right?
Right.
Like, how do we change this for us and for the next person? And every movement is saying, like, this is not just about me, this is for anybody after me, for whatever reason. So, you know, the women fighting for their rights, we were saying that it's not just for us, it's for anyone who was told you can't do something. Well, then there were, look how many groups there have been after that, where there's always one group telling you that you're less than they are.
Yeah.
By how they treat you, by the systems and the policies and the institutions and the rules and the clubs and the, you know,
or even taboos or whatever.
Like the us and them kind of mentality and stuff that has quashed so many aspirations for so many groups. And so it's not just about Black Lives Matter or women or kids or, you know,
non-binary or anything.
Any other community now. I think it's just like the root issue is still just that this idea of other exists in Sikhi, and once we address that, it's not a separate conversation about Black Lives Matter and these people and these people and these people and anything else. Because there's people that have, you know, we were talking about this, right? So there's people that have been you know, pressuring or advocating, or however you want to call it, you know, asking their community or their gurdwara for something as small as, you know, can you change to a healthier option in Langar? The amount of pushback you get on that screams of you don't matter. And if it's something small, like, can you just have a gluten-free option in Langar? Or can you have whatever, is the power struggle there and the powerlessness that someone would feel and repeatedly saying that their voice doesn't matter is what brings us to a point now where we have a faith that is predicated on equality, even having a discussion in the 21st century about inequality.
Yeah, it's kind of a conundrum. But I think, to your point, it raises this idea of, like, we need to play the long game with this and keep having these discussions. You know, it's like there's a lot of, we're kind of in this trifecta of catastrophe right now that's putting all this stuff in people's faces much more than it otherwise would have. But it's like, we do really need to keep having these discussions and keep coming back to the table and say, you know, how can we do this better, right? So, I don't know, maybe we'll leave it there.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts?
No, that's it. That was my final thought.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that helps. And yeah, please reach out to me if you guys want to talk more about this, or
at Begdea.
Yeah.
I should probably include that. They know.
No. Well, if you're watching this, you're probably on my YouTube channel or on my Instagram already. But
and if you're in Calgary or in the area,
we're in Calgary, so
let's get together and have a conversation. I'm volunteering.
Have a conversation.
Voluntelling him.
Yeah, I know. We really need to be having conversations, because, like, social media a lot of times just feels like you're in your car screaming at other drivers, you know, and like you feel like everybody's watching you, but it's really probably just a person right behind you that's paying attention to what you're doing. Nobody else cares. They're just all doing their own thing. Like, it's so hard to have a conversation. And it's like, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, and a lot of that information is just so ultra processed and cut down to like the absolute minimum. There's no room for nuance anywhere, you know, so it's so easy to just start screaming at each other, or like posting all this information in sound bites, and like you're really just having a discussion with yourself or appealing to the people who already agree with you. You know, and so it's like we need to take more time to like understand other people's points of view or their own lived experience and say, how did you come to be as you are, right? So, yeah, we definitely need to have more discussions and conversations about all this stuff and so much more. So,
Cool.
hopefully this is a stepping stone, to make that happen. But thank you guys for watching this much, and we will see you guys around.
Good night from Vulcan.
Yeah. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.